Adar, presumed to be one of the Moriondor, the first orcs created by Morgoth, despises Morgoth and Sauron for the cruel treatment of the orcs. He claims to have killed Sauron and has a big following of orcs who revere him as a god. Adar also hates the elves, feeling abandoned and rejected by them, and he resents the free people and men for killing orcs or siding with Morgoth and Sauron. He captures the elf Arondir, forcing him to persuade nearby villagers to join his cause. A division among the villagers leads to conflict, and Adar's forces attempt to destroy Ostirith, only to be caught in a trap set by Arondir. After suffering losses, Adar's forces attack Tir Harat, but are opposed by Galadriel and her army. In the meantime, Adar's commander Waldrek causes a volcanic eruption and Adar escapes, renaming the Southlands to Mordor as he regroups with his army. Azog. Azog the Defiler is the archenemy of Thorin Oakenshield and the father of Bolg. He is remembered as the vilest and most fearsome of the orcs. Azog and his orcs once took control of the mines of Moria, the home of the dwarves. When Thror led his people to reclaim Moria, Azog killed him in the Battle of Azanul Bizar, driving Thror's son Thrain mad with grief. Azog then fought Thorin, Thror's grandson. In battle, Thorin cut off his left arm, but Azog survived and swore revenge. Their forces clashed again at the Battle of the Five Armies near the Lonely Mountain, where Thorin and Azog fought to the death. Alfrid Lickspittle. This coward is a major antagonist in the Hobbit trilogy. He serves as the assistant to the Master of Lake Town and advises him on diplomacy, trade and defense. But he's also a power-hungry sycophant who only cares for his own interests. Alfrid treats the citizens poorly, plots against Bard the Bowman, and refuses to help those in need like the wounded dwarf Kili. During Smaug's attack on Lake Town, Alfrid sacrifices villagers to save himself. After his master is dead, he sides with Bard to avoid trouble. When Azog's orc army finally attacks, Alfrid disguises himself as a woman to hide from the battle and flees after stealing gold. Later, he at least saves Gandalf when one of his coins accidentally triggers a catapult where he was hiding, throwing him into a troll's mouth. Bolg. Azog's son is the second in command and seeks to destroy the Oakenshield bloodline. He becomes the archenemy of Legolas in the Hobbit movies. When Azog is summoned to Dol Guldur by Sauron, he sends Bolg to hunt Thorin, Bilbo and the dwarves. Bolg tracks them to Mirkwood, fights the elves and dwarves, then chases them to Lake Town. There, Tauriel and Legolas save Bard's family from Bolg's attack. Bolg then retreats, informs Dol Guldur of the dwarves' location, and later leads orc forces from Gundabad to Erebor. At the Battle of the Five Armies, Bolg fights Legolas during Thorin's final confrontation with Azog. Denethor, the steward of Gondor, descended into madness after his son Boromir's death. When Mordor's armies besieged Gondor, Denethor refused to seek help from Rohan because he knew Aragorn, the rightful heir to Gondor's throne, would come with them. Instead, he sent his other son Faramir to recapture Osgiliath, but Faramir returned injured with no reinforcements. Believing the war was lost, Denethor attempted to burn himself and Faramir alive, but Faramir was rescued by the hobbit Pippin and Gandalf. Denethor, still burning, jumped from Minas Tirith's pinnacle to his death. Faramir, though unable to rule due to his injuries, succeeded his father as steward. Durin's Bane. This Balrog from the First Age served Morgoth under Gothmog. After Morgoth's defeat, this Balrog survived and hid in Moria. The dwarves, searching for Mithril, accidentally awoke the Balrog, which killed their king Durin and many others. When the Fellowship of the Ring entered Moria, the Balrog pursued them. Gandalf stayed behind on the bridge of Khazad-dûm to confront him, allowing the Fellowship to escape. Gothmog. This cruel and vile orc served as the second in command to the Witch King of Angmar and led Sauron's forces during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. After Saruman's defeat and the loss of Isengard, Gothmog commanded the orcs crossing the Anduin River to the western half of Osgiliath, still held by men. He received orders from the Witch King to assault Minas Tirith with all available forces. Gothmog's archers killed all but Faramir when they fired upon Gondor's knights. Eventually, during the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, Gothmog engaged Eowyn in combat. Gorbag. He was an orc lieutenant under Sauron, known for his love of torturing prisoners and his fear of the Nazgûl. Gorbag dreamed of leaving Sauron's service to live as a bandit with a few trusty lads in the countryside. Gorbag and Uruk-hai Shagrat discovered Frodo in Shelob's lair and took him to the Tower of Cirith Ungol, only to torture him. A dispute over Frodo's mithril vest between Gorbag and Shagrat escalated into a violent fight between their two orc factions. In the chaos, Gorbag pursued Frodo, only to be killed by Samwise. The Goblin King, also known as the Great Goblin, he was the cruel and sadistic ruler of Goblin Town. He sought to collect the reward placed on Thorin Oakenshield's head by Azog the Defiler when Thorin, Bilbo Baggins and the other dwarves stumbled into his lair. Later, the Goblin King's lieutenant Grinna found Thorin's sword, the Goblin Cleaver, which enraged him. The Goblin King ordered the dwarves' execution, but Gandalf arrived, scattering the goblins. As the dwarves fought their way out, the Goblin King confronted them on a bridge, taunting Gandalf, but he was no match to him. Gollum. Smeagol was a hobbit corrupted and transformed by the One Ring. On his 33rd birthday, Smeagol and his cousin Diagol went fishing. When Diagol found the One Ring underwater, Smeagol, consumed by greed, demanded it. When Diagol refused, Smeagol strangled him and claimed the ring, calling it his precious. Smeagol used the ring for thievery and was eventually cast out by his grandmother. He then retreated to a cave in the Misty Mountains where the ring twisted his body and mind, extending his life by 500 years. After losing the ring to Bilbo Baggins, Gollum spent decades hunting it. He later became the guide for Frodo Baggins, intending to reclaim the ring. His obsession led him to betray Frodo, ultimately causing the ring's destruction and his own demise. Grima Wormtongue. Wormtongue was once a man of Rohan who betrayed his people for Saruman. Together, they manipulated King Theoden, and Wormtongue murdered his son Theodred by poisoning him. Saruman promised Wormtongue that he could have Theoden's niece Eowyn in return for his service. When Theoden's nephew Eomer opposed him, Wormtongue had Eomer banished. Gandalf eventually broke Saruman's control over Theoden, and Theoden tried to kill Wormtongue, but Aragorn stopped him. Wormtongue fled to Saruman in Isengard, where he was trapped in Orthanc when the Ents flooded Isengard. During a confrontation with Gandalf and Theoden, Theoden offered Wormtongue a chance to return to his side. Wormtongue, mistreated by Saruman, wanted to accept, but Saruman slapped him. Enraged, Wormtongue stabbed Saruman in the back. Legolas then killed Wormtongue with an arrow, but Saruman fell to his death. Khamûl, also known as the Shadow of the East, he was the second in command of the Nazgûl, serving directly under the Witch King of Angmar. Before becoming a ringwraith, Khamûl was an Easterling king who was corrupted by one of the 9 rings of power. He had enhanced vision and the ability to sense the presence of the One Ring. Khamûl played a significant role in Sauron's search for the One Ring when he led the Nazgûl in their pursuit of Frodo Baggins. Despite his abilities, he, along with the other Nazgûl, was ultimately destroyed when the One Ring was cast into Mount Doom. The King of the Dead. He and his people initially worshipped Sauron, but later pledged loyalty to Isildur, the King of Gondor. When Isildur called upon them to fight against Sauron, they refused, fearing to fight their former master. Enraged, Isildur cursed them as oath-breakers, turning them into restless ghosts that were unable to find peace. Aragorn sought out the army of the dead in the caves of Dun Harrow. The King of the Dead questioned Aragorn's claim, but he was convinced after seeing his reforged sword Anduril. The spectral army agreed to fight for Aragorn, attacking the Corsairs and preventing them from entering Gondor. The ghosts then accompanied Aragorn to Minas Tirith and helped defend the city from an army of orcs and trolls led by the Witch King of Angmar. After the battle, Aragorn fulfilled their oath, allowing the men of Dun Harrow to finally rest in peace. Despite their aid, the King of the Dead's motivation was ultimately selfish. Lurtz. This Uruk-hai captain was created by Saruman in Isengard to lead his army against the Fellowship of the Ring. Unlike regular orcs, Uruk-hai were stronger, faster, and could withstand daylight. Lurtz's primary mission was to capture or kill the members of the Fellowship, and he later ambushes them at Amon Hen. In the ensuing battle, Lurtz kills Boromir with a volley of arrows. He then confronts Aragorn, engaging in a brutal fight, but is ultimately defeated. The Mouth of Sauron. He was one of the Dark Lord's most disgusting and loyal servants. As Sauron's messenger, he belonged to the Black Númenóreans, warlocks who waged war against men and elves. When the Fellowship reached the Black Gate, the Mouth of Sauron showed them Frodo's mithril vest, obtained from the orcs, making the Fellowship believe that Frodo was dead. Unaware of Frodo's escape from Cirith Ungol, he taunted the heroes, claiming that Frodo suffered greatly before dying and had failed his quest to destroy the One Ring. Aragorn rode up to him, and the Mouth of Sauron mocked him, saying it would take more than Isildur's sword to make him king of Gondor. In response, Aragorn beheaded him. Following this, the entire orc army marched out of Mordor. Morgoth. Melkor, later known as Morgoth, is a fallen Valar, godlike beings created by the one god Iro Ilúvatar. Morgoth became the Dark Lord during the First Age, seeking to conquer all of Middle-earth. In his quest for domination, Morgoth terrorized and destroyed many civilizations. He created various monsters and corrupted every being he encountered to form a powerful army. Everything evil in Middle-earth can be traced back to his existence. Though eventually defeated and imprisoned, his legacy lived on through his right hand and successor, Sauron, who aimed to fulfill his goal. Saruman. Saruman the White is the former close friend turned arch-enemy of Gandalf and the Ents. He was an angelic being known as a Maya. Following the first downfall of Sauron, Saruman was sent to Middle-earth as the chief of the Order of the Istari. His duty was to rally the free people should the Dark Lord return. Saruman's envy of Gandalf and his greed led him to be lured by Sauron into his service. Betraying his allies, Saruman became the Dark Lord's puppet, aiming to usurp Sauron's place as the Lord of the Rings if he possessed the One Ring. From Orthanc in Isengard, Saruman recruited the orcs of the Misty Mountains, allied with the Dunlendings against Rohan, and built an army of Uruk-hai to conquer Rohan and assist in Sauron's conquest of Gondor. He also placed Grima Wormtongue as a spy to weaken Theoden. Additionally, Saruman sent Lurtz and his elite force to hunt the Fellowship and capture the Ring-bearer in his quest for the ring. Sauron. Originally known as Mairen, Sauron was once the most powerful of the Maiar, divine beings that served the Valar, who created Middle-earth. Mairon fell into the service of Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, who sought to enslave the world. After Morgoth's defeat, Sauron succeeded him but went into hiding. In the Second Age, he disguised himself as Halbrand, the lost heir of the Southlands, and sought to ally with Galadriel to rule Middle-earth together. Sauron forged the One Ring to dominate all of Middle-earth, but he was defeated and lost his physical form. He returned in the Third Age as a lidless, flaming eye in Mordor, amassing a dark army to wage war on the free people and reclaim the One Ring to regain his full power. He is allied with evil beings like Smaug, Saruman and the Nazgûl. Shelob, the greatest of Ungoliant's spawn, is one of Middle-earth's most fearsome great spiders. Ungoliant, an ancient fallen angel in spider form, once served Morgoth in destroying the two trees of Valinor and created her. Shelob resided in the pass of Cirith Ungol, the only entry to Mordor besides the Black Gate. Gollum, in his quest to reclaim the One Ring, lured Frodo and Sam into Shelob's lair, hoping the spider would kill them both and leave him the ring. Smaug. Centuries ago, the large dragon Smaug discovered the vast treasures of the dwarves of Erebor within the Misty Mountains. He attacked Erebor, annihilating the neighboring city of Dale and sending the dwarves into exile. He then settled on the treasure beneath Erebor's ruins. After the death of their king Thror, the dwarves led by Thorin Oakenshield sought to reclaim Erebor with the help of Bilbo Baggins. Smaug, who also allied with Sauron, became a major enemy for Bilbo and Bard the Bowman. When Bilbo entered the mountain to retrieve the Arkenstone, he awoke Smaug. The Watcher in the Water, a monstrous kraken that some believe was created by Morgoth. It emerged from the dark waters beneath the Misty Mountains when the fiery Balrog, Durin's Bane, was unleashed upon Moria. The Watcher resided in the black waters beneath the mountains for years. When the Fellowship of the Ring arrived, the Watcher attacked Frodo but was wounded in the skirmish. Enraged, it sealed the West Gate, trapping the Fellowship inside Moria and aiming to force a confrontation with the Balrog. The fate of the Watcher remains unclear, but it is likely that the dwarves fought and defeated it when they reclaimed Moria in the 4th Age. The Witch King of Angmar. He serves as Sauron's second in command and Lord of the Nazgûl. Once a great Lord of Men, he fell under Sauron's sway and became a wraith after receiving one of the 9 rings given to men. He founded the Kingdom of Angmar and used it to annihilate the Kingdom of Arnor. In response, Gondor and the elves allied to defeat Angmar, which led to the Witch King's return to Mordor. There, he captured Minas Ithil, renaming it Minas Morgul, and led the Nazgûl during the siege of Barad-dûr. They went into hiding after Sauron was defeated by Isildur. Years later, he hunted for the One Ring, but was defeated at the ford of Bruinen by a flood summoned by Elrond and Gandalf. After Saruman's death and the loss of Isengard, the Nazgûl acquired Fell Beasts, and the Witch King led his army to Gondor. During the siege of Gondor and the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, he killed King Theoden of Rohan and many others. He was ultimately confronted by a warrior who killed his Fell Beast. Subscribe for more videos and hit that like button down there to support us.